That evening felt heavier than most. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that presses on your chest until you have to acknowledge it. Sarah sat on the couch, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. The TV was on, but neither of us watched it. The flicker of light across her face only made her look smaller, more fragile. I could tell she had something to say. I'd felt it for weeks. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled like a cracked note. I've developed feelings for someone else. For a moment, I didn't move, didn't blink. My mind didn't rush to anger or heartbreak. Just stillness. I'd known, deep down, the late nights, the distracted smiles, the faint scent of someone else's cologne that lingered a little too long. All right, I said. That was all. 2 words, steady and quiet. She blinked, confused, as if she hadn't heard me correctly. Maybe she expected a shout, a slammed door, a broken glass. But I just stood and walked to the kitchen. My hands didn't shake as I poured a glass of water. I could feel her eyes following me, searching for the explosion that never came. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said softly. It's just, I'm confused. I took a slow sip, the cool water grounding me. The air between us grew thick with everything we wouldn't say. There was no rage in me, only a strange, hollow peace. I'd spent a long trying to hold together something that was already breaking. She wiped at her eyes, whispering, "Don't you have anything to say?" I looked at her and answered truthfully, "No, I think you've already said it all." The rest of the evening passed in a muted calm. She cried quietly. I sat by the window, watching the last of the daylight fade. I didn't feel like a man losing his wife, just a man finally realizing he'd already lost her long ago. The next morning, the house was coated in silence again, the kind that clings even after a storm. Sarah was at the kitchen table, her hair unbrushed, a cup of untouched coffee before her. I could tell she hadn't slept. I hadn't either, but I didn't feel broken, just clear. When I entered, she looked up, her eyes red. "I didn't sleep," she whispered. I kept thinking about what I said. I nodded slowly. "So did I." Her lip quivered. "Please, just listen." It wasn't physical, it was emotional. I didn't plan for it, but I just connected with him. I felt seen. I leaned against the counter, arms folded, and I didn't. Tears streamed down her face. "That's not fair. Neither is loving someone else while you're still married," I said quietly. There was no bite in my tone, just truth. She covered her face with her hands. "I don't know what I'm doing. I feel lost." I stared at her for a long moment, feeling something shift inside me. Not anger, not sorrow, but release. For years, I'd been trying to fix something that refused to heal. I had begged for connection, for time, for presence. Now, all I felt was done. "Pack your things," I said finally. Her head shot up, disbelief washing over her face. "What? Pack your things? Sarah, you can stay wherever he is, or anywhere you want, but not here." Her lips trembled. "You're not even angry?" "No," I said. "I'm free." She looked at me as if I'd spoken another language, her tears halting for a moment, replaced by something else. Fear, not of me, but of what she'd just lost. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. Behind me, I heard her chair scrape against the floor, the muffled sound of her sobs. But my heart didn't flinch. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. By nightfall, the suitcase was by the door. I had helped her fold her clothes. Not out of love, but out of habit. The quiet gestures that once defined us now felt like echoes of strangers. Every zipper closing sounded like a door locking in my heart. She stood there in her coat, staring at me. "You're really letting me go that easily?" I smiled faintly. "It stopped being easy a long time ago." Her eyes shimmered. "I thought you'd fight for me." "I did," I said softly. "You just didn't notice." The words hung between us like dust in the fading light. She took a step forward, maybe hoping for one last touch, but I stepped back, keeping the distance that truth demanded. There was no hatred, only calm acceptance. She turned toward the door, her shoulders shaking as she whispered, "I'm sorry." "I know," I replied, "and I forgive you." That startled her. Maybe she wanted me to rage, to curse, to beg. Anything that would prove I still cared enough to hurt. But I didn't. I had nothing left to give but peace. The door closed gently behind her, and for the first time, I felt the house exhale. The silence that followed wasn't emptiness. It was clarity. I walked back to our bedroom, now just mine. The space felt larger, the air lighter. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the empty side, the dent in the pillow where she used to sleep. Instead of grief, I felt gratitude. Before turning off the light, I whispered to the darkness, "Thank you." Not to her, not to anyone, but to whatever force had finally given me the strength to stop holding on to what was already gone. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The first week after she left, the silence felt strange, like wearing clothes that didn't quite fit yet. But soon, it started to feel right. The clatter of dishes, the hum of the fridge, the creak of the floorboards, they became a rhythm, not a reminder. Mornings were peaceful. I'd wake up early, make coffee, and open the windows just to let the air move freely. There were no arguments about bills, no sighs of disappointment over unspoken expectations. Just quiet. And somehow, that quiet started to heal me. I cleaned the house from top to bottom. Not out of obsession, but out of release. Every drawer I emptied, every photo I took down, felt like reclaiming space in my own mind. Her perfume faded, and with it, the constant ache of trying to be enough. Work came easier. I stopped checking my phone for texts that never arrived. I began walking in the evenings, talking to neighbors, rediscovering small joys, the smell of rain, the comfort of solitude, the way the world doesn't collapse just because love does. One evening, a friend invited me for dinner. I almost said no, then realized I had no reason to hide anymore. The conversation was simple, human. For the first time, I laughed without guilt. That night, lying in bed, I realized something profound. I wasn't lonely. I was just unburdened. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It seeps in quietly, like sunlight through curtains. And as I drifted to sleep, I understood. What I had lost wasn't love. It was illusion. And what I was finding again was myself. It was a month later when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Sarah stood there, pale, thinner, eyes hollowed by sleeplessness. She clutched her bag like a shield. For a second, I thought she was a stranger. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice cracked on the last word. I stepped aside without saying much. She walked in slowly, her gaze darting across the house, noticing the rearranged furniture, the new calm in the air. "It looks different," she murmured. "It is," I said. We sat across from each other at the table, the same one where she once confessed. She looked smaller now, fragile in her guilt. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "It wasn't what I thought it would be. He wasn't who I thought he was." I stayed silent, letting her words spill. "I thought I needed excitement," she continued, "but all I found was emptiness. You were steady, kind. I took that for granted." Her tears came then, raw and unfiltered. I listened, not to punish her, but because I no longer needed to interrupt. "Please," she said, reaching for my hand. "I want to come home." I drew my hand back gently. "Sarah, this isn't your home anymore." She flinched, her lip trembling. "You don't mean that." "I do," I said softly. "You chose your path, and I chose peace." She looked around as if realizing for the first time how much of her absence the house had embraced. The flowers on the counter, the art on the wall, all new, all mine. Her tears fell harder. "I don't recognize you," she said through sobs. I smiled faintly. "That's because I finally recognized myself." Weeks passed, and life moved forward quietly, steadily, like a river no longer fighting the rocks. I woke each morning to sunlight on the walls instead of tension in the air. The peace I'd once thought impossible had become my new normal. Sarah tried reaching out a few times, a text on my birthday, an email asking if we could just talk. I didn't answer, not out of spite, but because silence was finally serving me better than words ever could. The house no longer felt empty. It felt alive in its simplicity. My routines became rituals of gratitude: coffee on the porch at sunrise, a jog through the park, the quiet satisfaction of doing things just for me. I even started painting again, something I'd abandoned years ago when all my energy went into trying to keep our marriage from collapsing. One evening, as I cleaned out the last of her old belongings, I found our wedding photo. For a long moment, I stared at it, the smiles, the innocence, the belief that love alone could hold us together. Then, without bitterness, I placed it in a box and carried it to the garage. Letting go didn't hurt anymore. It just felt right. People sometimes ask if I regret how calmly I handled it all, if maybe I should have fought, shouted, demanded answers. But I don't think peace ever needs to be loud to be strong. That betrayal didn't destroy me. It revealed me. It stripped away everything false until only truth remained. I don't need to be someone's reason to stay. I just need to be my own reason to live freely. As I stood at the window that night, the city lights flickering below, I whispered the only goodbye that still mattered: "Thank you for leaving." And for the first time, I truly meant it.